Right. So what I want to do is, like I said, I want it to be a bit of a 101 for people. So I want to send this show around to people who I think maybe haven't thought about money enough. So I want to work through some of the basics with you. I want to help people understand the nature of what makes good money, what makes bad money. And then I want to dig into the uses of money, because I hadn't really considered it in terms of, consume, save, invest, and share, which is in your article, which we will share in the show notes. I know I do it. I know I use money for that, but I hadn't considered them individually and what makes good money for those different use cases. But I think it's a good starting point to talk about the key aspects of money. And VJ Boyapati's article, The Bullish Case for Bitcoin, has that grid, which I think is fantastic.
I agree.
So when we talk, and I'll share that in the show notes as well, but when we talk about types of money, Bitcoin, fiat, and if anyone listening doesn't know what fiat is, it's dollars, pounds, euros, etc. And gold, gold, fiat, and Bitcoin. We talk about these properties and how each form of money is suitable for those. So do you want to run through them and explain what makes good money and what makes bad money?
Sure. And as you point out, this has been highlighted by VJ. Robert Breedlove's done a lot of work on this. Safety's done a lot of work on this. It's kind of like going through the properties of what makes good money and how they kind of compare to each other. And so you want like a list of criteria. So the whole purpose of money compared to an investment or something like that is that you want it to be liquid, safe, fungible. So if I buy a house or a specific company as an investment, that is something that is risky and that is something that is non-liquid and fungible. Like it's a specific thing. It's hard, it's a hassle for me to transfer it to someone else. That's kind of either a long-term bet or long-term savings or a specific plan to grow my investment with risk of loss. Whereas with money, it's kind of the opposite. I want like a low-risk battery of storing income now so that I can expend it in the future or share it or give it away or whatever I want to do. And so it's got to be liquid. It's got to be something that I can just easily transfer to someone. It's got to be something that is easily divisible, fungible, so that all the units are either identical or nearly identical. And it's got to be something that holds its value that I want to hold it longer term. And then I want to add other things like you want it to be verifiable. You want it to be portable, and there's multiple ways to break that down. You can kind of look at different monies and like VJ did, for example, you can score them on the different aspects, right? So for example, gold holds its value pretty well long term, right? Because gold's got a very, very low inflation rate, meaning the amount of gold that exists above ground grows at a very, very slow rate historically, and there's a good reason for that. Whereas other types of commodities can grow very quicker. And so gold ends up being a very good store of value, but it has shortcomings in terms of portability, divisibility, verifying that what you actually own is gold, like the ease of being able to do that. Whereas when you look at something like the dollar, they've made advances for how easily you can send it around, right? Because it's, you can have digital representations of it, and you can, it's very easy to move around. But of course, the downside is that, there's no constraint on how much they can print other than kind of self-imposed restraint that is kind of meant to keep guardrails on the system and it, stop it from hyperinflating. So there's kind of guardrails on it, but they're self-imposed. And so over time, in practical terms, the rate of new dollar creation is much faster than the rate of new gold creation, right? So when you compare those, you think, okay, those are interesting. We obviously have to pay them for tax purposes. We have to, have some working capital to use them. They're liquid. The government specifically does their best to try to control the volatility at the exchange of devaluation, but they try to control the volatility of it. And so there's advantages, but they're not a great long-term place to store capital. And so when you go down the list, each type of money has shortcomings. And when you look at something like Bitcoin, it's interesting because the innovation there is that it kind of took the best properties of gold and fiat and mixed them together. So you have the slow monetary inflation rate of gold. In the long run, it's even less because eventually, the inflation rate trends towards zero, right, with Bitcoin. And you have that scarcity. But then you also have the better divisibility, better portability, and better verification. And so in many ways, it's across the board better than most other monies with a couple of weaknesses relative to, it's still relatively untested. It's got 13 years of testing, 13 years of monetization. It's smaller than dollars or gold, so it's less liquid, far more volatile, less widely held, less widely accepted. And so what we can describe it as is an emerging money. And all anyone has to do is kind of look at the properties of it and determine if that's something that they want to hold relative to other monies, if that's something that's valuable to them. So a lot of people will still kind of put it in the speculation camp or the investment camp. And I think it's a reasonable way to interpret it, because you're betting that the way it's behaved for 13 years and the properties it's had for 13 years are going to continue. So you've analyzed the probability of this occurring. You're making some sort of future judgment about this relatively new system. So that makes sense. But on the other hand, you can literally use it as insurance, because it's one of the few types of monies that you can easily self-custody. It's more portable than other types of monies. And we've seen this throughout emerging markets, right? It's easy to have, it's hard to move across borders with gold or physical cash. It's hard to transfer bank money around the world. But Bitcoin's something that you can literally self-custody and pretty much move wherever you want. And so I don't think the world fully realizes its properties yet and what that means.